There's something Scorpio carries that other people can't name. It's not patience, it's not resignation. It's something else, deeper, warmer, harder to explain. It's that certainty that burns brightly within the chest, even when everything outside is too quiet, when the silence begins to weigh heavily, when anyone else would have already given up, or at least pretended to give up. But you didn't give up, and deep down, you don't even really know why. There's a very convenient narrative about Scorpio, that it's a sign that waits, that it has patience, that it knows the right moment to act. And it's true, but it's the truth of someone looking from the outside. Inside, the experience is completely different. Inside, there is no peace at all. There is constant movement. There is a process that never stops, that works on layers that others don't see, that builds and rebuilds something that doesn't yet exist in the real world, but already exists in an absolutely concrete way within you. The universe is useless to those who are not ready. And Scorpio instinctively, sometimes without even consciously realizing it, never stops preparing. Imagine a dormant volcano. From the outside, it's just a mountain. No one sees what's happening in the depths, the pressure building up, the heat that doesn't dissipate, the energy concentrating around a single point. And when it finally happens, when the volcano awakens, no one says it was a surprise. Those who understand geology know that it was ready long ago. The moment of eruption is just the instant when the internal process became visible to the world. Scorpio is like that. What seems like stillness is actually accumulated pressure. What seems like waiting is actually deep preparation. And what finally arrives, what the universe delivers, sometimes in ways you yourself can't quite explain, doesn't come from nothing. It comes from everything that happened beneath the surface. But this is where the story gets more complicated, because Scorpio has a very specific habit regarding what it desires, a habit that protects and imprisons at the same time. When Scorpio truly wants something, something that truly matters, not the small things, but those that touch the core, Scorpio doesn't speak, it guards. It protects that desire as if exposing it to the world would somehow weaken its chances of being fulfilled. And perhaps that's why most people never understand what Scorpio truly wants. You don't announce it, you don't post it, you don't celebrate it in advance. There's something in you that knows, in a very ancient way, that certain things need to grow in the darkness before they can face the light. Like a seed. You don't plant a seed and immediately point to the ground saying, "Look, it's going to grow here." The seed needs soil. It needs darkness. It needs silence to germinate. And it is precisely during this period that seems like inactivity to others, that everything most important is happening. But then comes the question that Scorpio can't help but ask. The question that keeps you awake at night. If the desire is so real, if the certainty is so strong, if you did everything within your power to do, why hasn't it arrived yet? That's the most honest question Scorpio can ask. And that's exactly where most answers fail, because it's not a question of patience, it's a question of alignment. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. Isn't a book about waiting longer. It's about understanding the specific mechanism of Scorpio, that subterranean process you already feel but never had the language to describe. How what you carry internally interacts with what the universe can deliver. How the intensity that is your deepest characteristic can work in your favor instead of keeping you trapped in a cycle of almost there. This book was written for those who have already gone deep enough to know that superficial answers no longer suffice. You are now at exactly the point where this knowledge makes the most sense, with the discomfort still active, with the question still unanswered, with something within you recognizing that there is a layer here that has not yet been explored. It is now, not later, that this content will land with the most force. The link is in the first pinned comment. But be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. Tell me in the comments, is there something you've wanted for a long time that you've never told anyone, not even a word? That's the protective aspect Scorpio uses to guard their own desires. Do you recognize that in yourself? The answer lies in the most uncomfortable place for Scorpio, the relationship this sign has with control. Think about it. Scorpio is a sign that goes deep, that doesn't stay on the surface, that when it wants to understand something, it dismantles everything until it gets to the root. And this ability is one of the most extraordinary strengths that exist. But the same mechanism that makes Scorpio delve deep into understanding also operates in desire. And that's where things get complicated. When Scorpio wants something, they don't want it lightly. They want it with an intensity that's almost physical. You can feel what hasn't yet arrived as if it were already yours. You can see the details, anticipate the sensation, build the complete scenario internally, and then, without realizing it, you start managing the variables, calculating probabilities, trying to ensure that the path to making it happen is as safe as possible, protecting the outcome from anything that might derail it. And that's exactly where the universe starts to break down. Not because you did something wrong, but because controlling the outcome is fundamentally different from co-creating the outcome. When you close your hands around what you want, when you map out all possible paths and block those that seem dangerous, when you begin to condition the arrival in the specific way you imagined, you are, without realizing it, narrowing the space through which the universe could work. Consider the image of sand. If you hold sand in a closed hand, the force of your grip makes it slip through your fingers. But if you open your hand, it stays. The sand didn't disappear because you lost control. It stayed because you created space for it. Scorpio experiences this tension in a very particular way, because letting go is not the same as giving up. And here lies the most beautiful and most difficult paradox of this sign. Surrender doesn't come from weakness. It comes from a trust so profound that it can coexist with intense desire without needing to manage every detail of how it will be achieved. But this confidence doesn't fall from the sky. It's built. And do you know where it's built? In the descents, in the transformations, in the cycles where Scorpio was forced to die a little in order to be reborn different. Every time you went through something difficult and came out on the other side still standing, you accumulated proof. Not abstract faith, concrete proof, lived in the body, that you survive what you don't control. This tension between controlling and trusting, between tightening the grip and loosening the grip, is the central knot that Scorpio needs to untie so that what is rightfully theirs can finally arrive. And untying this knot requires understanding their own internal architecture with a depth that goes beyond what any horoscope will give them. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign towards a life of purpose is exactly about that, how to transform the intensity that is Scorpio's greatest strength into a channel for creation instead of a blocking mechanism. How to go deep, which is what you already know how to do, but now with direction and not with heaviness. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. And then, when Scorpio begins to let go, not completely, because Scorpio never lets go completely all at once, it's a gradual, almost imperceptible process. Something changes. Not from the outside in, from the inside out. That's when the signs start to appear. You've experienced this before, probably more than once. That coincidence that was too big to be a coincidence. That person who showed up saying exactly what you needed to hear on the day you least expected it. That opportunity that arose from a place you weren't even looking, at the moment you had just stopped looking in the wrong places. These things have one thing in common. They don't arrive when you're most desperate. They arrive when you've achieved some kind of inner balance, when your internal frequency has shifted. Think of a musical instrument. When a string is perfectly tuned, other objects in the room begin to vibrate at the same frequency without being touched. It's physics. It's not mysticism. It's resonance. And Scorpio, when it aligns what it wants with what it is internally, begins to resonate at a frequency that the universe recognizes and responds to. But here's a question that will arise. It's human to have this doubt. You'll ask yourself, is this real, or am I seeing what I want to see? Am I projecting meaning onto random coincidences because I need to believe it's happening? It's an honest question. And the honest answer is, sometimes yes. Scorpio can create narratives, can build systems of meaning where there is only noise. What differentiates true alignment from projection is only one thing: peace. When it's projection, there's anxiety behind the interpretation of the signs. A rush, this has to mean it's coming, it has to be. When it's real alignment, the interpretation of the signs comes with a strange calm, a silent knowing, as if you didn't need the sign to confirm anything. It only confirmed what you already knew inside. And Scorpio knows the difference. Always has. It's just that sometimes it needs enough silence to be able to hear it. This silent knowledge that Scorpio possesses, this ability to distinguish between projection and truth, between anxious desire and profound certainty, is precisely the type of emotional intelligence that can be developed and deepened. It is not a fixed gift. It is practice, the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose, offers the tools to calibrate this perception so you can stop questioning your own inner signals and begin to trust them accurately. Because a Scorpio who learns to listen to themselves stops asking if the universe is responding. They simply know. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. But there's something that this whole process, the subterranean waiting, the protective silence, the paradox of control, the signs that begin to appear, there's something that all of this does to Scorpio without you realizing it as it happens. It will transform you. And it's not a pretty metaphor, it's literal. The person who started waiting isn't the same person who will receive, not because time has passed, but because what you went through during that period, the doubts, the sleepless nights, the versions of the plan that didn't work, the layers you were forced to peel back, all of that rebuilt you from the inside. Think of the chrysalis. The butterfly doesn't just stand still inside the cocoon, waiting for the moment to emerge. The chrysalis is the process. What goes into the cocoon dissolves, literally dissolves, into raw material, and what comes out is completely new. The butterfly wasn't just sitting there waiting, it was becoming. Scorpio does this, sometimes unintentionally, because life doesn't give you a choice. Sometimes consciously, because this sign has a relationship with transformation that no other sign matches. An instinctive acceptance that in order to be reborn, something must die first, not as a tragedy, as a natural process. And what arrives at the end of this cycle doesn't find you the same way you were when you started. It finds a version of you that was forged precisely for that. That grew to the right measure. That can now sustain what you would have let slip through your hands before, not out of weakness, but out of lack of form. This explains why certain things take a long time for Scorpio. They weren't overdue. They were waiting for the version from you that was able to receive them. And when it arrives, because it does arrive, Scorpio recognizes it. Not with astonishment, not with that frantic euphoria of someone who didn't believe it was going to happen, with a calm confirmation, a settling, as if a part of you already knew, and now the rest of the world is finally catching up. There is a very specific difference between what was desire and what is destiny. Desire sometimes arrives and surprises. Ah, that's it. I hadn't thought of it that way. Destiny arrives and you recognize it. even if the form is different from what you imagined, even if it arrived by a path you would never have envisioned. Think of the image of the key and the lock. You may have tried 1,000 keys. Some seemed like they would work. They came close, started turning, created hope. And they didn't work, and it was frustrating. And you kept that as proof that maybe it wasn't for you. Maybe you were wrong about what you wanted. But when the right key fits into the right lock, there's no doubt. There's no, could this be it? There's the silent certainty of someone who was right from the start, even when they doubted. Scorpio doubts. That's the part nobody talks about. This seemingly unwavering sign, this sign that always seems to know, doubts internally with an intensity that would be frightening to see from the outside, because it goes deep. And when you go deep, you also find the shadows, the unanswered questions, the versions of yourself that didn't get what they wanted and still carry that burden. But even in doubt, there's something that doesn't go out. That flame, you know that flame. The one that stays even when you blow on it. The one that resists the wind. That flame isn't stubbornness. It's Scorpio knowing at the deepest level what is real. That flame that never goes out. That certainty that persists even in nights of doubt. That's what the divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose helps you recognize, name, and align with the right direction. Not to create certainty where it doesn't exist, but so that you stop confusing doubt with a sign that you're wrong. Scorpios, who learn to distinguish between the two, stop sabotaging themselves at the very moment they were closest to doing so. This book is for those who are already close, but still carry the weight of all the times they almost made it. For those who need a perspective that respects the depth of what you have already experienced. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. There's a very common idea about Scorpio's relationship with the universe. The idea that this sign is too intense, too demanding, too controlling. And that's why the universe sometimes resists, as if there were a punishment for being who you are. But that's not it. Scorpio is not punished for its intensity. Scorpio is challenged to use it in a different way. Intensity is not the problem. It's the raw material. It's the fuel. What changes is the relationship with the fire, not extinguishing it, not letting it burn uncontrollably, but learning to feed it with intention. Think of the ocean and the moon. The moon doesn't control the ocean. It doesn't order the tides to rise or fall, but there's a dance between the two, a mutual, gravitational, constant influence. The ocean responds to the moon because it has the nature to do so, and the moon responds to the ocean because the ocean is large enough to be felt up there. Scorpio dances with the universe. It doesn't obey, it doesn't wait, it dances. With all the complexity that this dance demands, the moments when you need to move forward, the moments when you need to retreat, the moments when the best thing is simply to stand still in the middle of the ocean and let the tide move around you. What was meant for you will always come. Not because the universe is randomly generous, but because there is a correspondence between who you are and what is destined for you. And everything that happened during the process, every transformation, every descent, every night when the flame grew small but did not go out, was part of a preparation that you did not consciously choose, but which was exactly right. Scorpio doesn't receive despite who they are. They receive because of who they are. And that changes everything.